Okay, now we're going to hear from Denise Moore's son. I just think that's so cool that his mother's here. So, Terron Moore. Terron is an SU graduate. He's a writer and social media strategist for Teen Vogue and most recently added Allure. So congratulations. He's completed written work for brands like ESPN, Elle, Teen Vogue, Esquire, Men's Fitness, Paper, and he's been everywhere on and off camera. You no doubt have seen him, MTV, Billboard, Huffington Post. And in the world of social media in particular, he's contributed to and created content for brands like the NBA, State Farm, my favorite commercials, and Gizmodo, The Root, you name it. As social media director at Teen Vogue and now Allure, he oversees all the content as it expands beyond the quarterly magazine and the Teen Vogue website. See him on Facebook, Snapchat, and just recently Adweek named Teen Vogue the country's hottest digital publication. And it's pretty clear Terron has had a big hand in that. Terron?
So 2 things to start really quick. This is actually my first time speaking in a public capacity like this. So as with all first times, please. So as with all first times, please be gentle with me. Like he said, my mom is here, so we're gonna do this. The second thing is, when you guys asked me to speak, I didn't even get a Newhouse, so I was like, why? So it's like, why am I here? But it's funny because the question of why am I here, as a writer and as a culture writer, which is kind of how I always view my work through the lens of culture and journalism in that sort of way. Why I'm here is actually a really important question that, it took me a long time to sort of approach. They already said the background on me, so I can just skip that paragraph. So as writers and as editors, we kind of use our words to answer questions. As a culture writer, for me, those questions were really simple, how was Scandal last night? Or, is the Samsung phone gonna blow up in my face? Is Chris Hemsworth really hotter than Chris Evans? Important questions. But there's a shift that's happening, and news outlets have been doing this for ages, trying to properly address and answer the questions that are going on in our nation. But we're seeing now that outlets like Teen Vogue, outlets that are primarily known for entertainment, are starting to figure out and realize that they have to answer those same questions. They have to start to address them. There's so many that have gone unanswered. Who are we? Who are we in relation to each other? Who are we as a nation? And it's really cool to kind of be in an era where those outlets take on those responsibilities in their own way. Not because it's the right thing to do, but because we literally see the benefits. As a social media director, my job is literally to engage with our readers on a daily basis in a way that, is instantaneous. And, when we see people tweeting us saying, hey, you did that wrong, we have to address it. When someone sends us a Facebook post and says, thank you for writing this because no one else is, that resonates with us, and it directly impacts, everything from what we put in print to our daily meetings. We interact with what you guys give us every day. So, over the last year at Teen Vogue, the sole reason I signed on to the job was because they had understood, and I don't this isn't something they tell people, but they had understood that not only were they not doing right by their audience, but they might have been part of the problem over the last couple of years. With a lack of diversity, with a lack of not respecting their audience enough to include diverse stories and diverse faces. And I literally went into the interview and I was sold on the idea that they were working really, really hard to make Teen Vogue a place beyond, fashion roundups and, Selena Gomez's $39 sneakers you need. They wanted to do more. So, I was pretty much brought on to help convey that message of this new Teen Vogue to the world. And it's not just inward, it's not just a teen focus. We are actively always looking for stories, always. We're finally learning that if Beyonce puts out an album and makes a statement about Black women and how they are affected in this country, you don't put a white writer on that. You don't. You find the Black girl that's gonna tell that story and how that relates to her. That's the more powerful story there. So we actively look for those things. For Muslim Women's Day, which was this past Monday, we wrote about a dozen different stories, firsthand by Muslim women. Stories we wrote like from everything about the hijab and its place in American society to Muslim beauty bloggers you need to follow to what it's like to be a Muslim woman working in the White House, you know? And it was cross-platform. Those stories obviously lived in editorial, but they were on Twitter, they were on Instagram. We figured out a strategy for Instagram stories to promote those. You know, we had one of the key influencers for the campaign in on our Facebook Live talking with one of our editors about the day and what it meant to her. So we're always kind of thinking of how to include marginalized voices, and not just on editorial, not just in our book, but entirely cross-platform and meeting our readers where they are. In 2017, we should use our powers as writers to tell our own stories. And as editors, we have to make sure those stories get told. And we have to do so no matter who's in the room. I've worked at brands where everybody in the room looks like me. I've worked at brands where there's no one in the room that looks like me. I've been in rooms where Anna Wintour's in the room, and like, that might be like a humble brag, but I'm just saying that to say that it's really terrifying. But like, real talk, like Anna's been super cool and supportive of our vision, and it's really reaffirming to hear that from her. You know, no matter your background, everybody has a story to tell. Even some people, you cisgender, heterosexual white males who feel like, you know, your voices aren't being heard, like it was said earlier, your voices are important too. You guys have a unique lens and a unique story to tell. And we have to be less fearful of respectfully sharing our points of view. One of the most significant stories I got to write for Teen Vogue, oddly enough, was after the murders of Alton Sterling and Philando Castile. I wrote a piece called "What It's Like to Be a Black Man in America Right Now." And it just was a piece that poured out of me. I had never written anything that personal before. I had never written anything, you know, that related, I think, culture and how we see each other to something that was happening in the news before. And the feedback that I got from that story that I was kind of nervous about, but I just felt an ownership to share, was astounding. So many people were just like, I don't understand, I'll never understand what you go through as your identity, but I support it, and reading what you had to say helped me understand it a little bit and made me want to support and become an ally and help in any way. Everybody in here has a story like that. Everybody in here is marginalized in some sort of way. And I think you owe it to yourself to try to frame that story and to try to write that story and try to get that story out there. Because I think the more that we try and click articles that we don't get and read them and try to get a better understanding of each other, I think the better that we are. If you're a writer, I'm imploring you to think about stories that only you can tell. One of the things that I hear a lot is like people, you know, are afraid of being pigeonholed as like, oh, I don't want to be that feminist writer or like that black writer. And from my point of view, like if you could write about social justice and about the Falcons blowing a 28-3 lead, like that's great. Like we need that on our team. It makes you more of it, like it makes you more malleable. The fact that we have someone on our team that can do both, that's so important. So don't be afraid to expand, you know, what you can write about and what you can do. But also, like I said earlier, use your voice on social media. If you see stories that are unfair, that are inaccurate representations of, you know, the real story, call them out, because we see it. Like brands, like we need to be loved, like we just do. So if you guys call us out on something, I promise you we'll see it, we address it. And if you're a writer-editor, hold your stories accountable for accurate representation, whether you're writing them or assigning them out. I'll never forget, there was a time where we were doing a country roundup. We were working with a publicist who had this country singer who like Grammy nominated now. Like she was like kind of just rising when we worked with her. But she wanted to basically have us do like a country roundup of like singers that are like blowing up. And our digital entertainment editor at the time, she was just like, so is there gonna be a person of color in this? And I could see the PR person's reaction like, what do you mean person of color in country? Like how am I gonna find a girl of color in country for this roundup? And our editor was like, well, if we can't find a girl of color, like I'm sorry, like we're just not gonna do it. So we found one and we did the roundup with everyone in it. And we actually ended up fostering a really good relationship with that person, and they went on to be Grammy nominated, which is great. But that's an example of how being more inclusive and finding ways to represent other people is really important. It hurt no one. It actually helped someone. And everyone was happy. Everyone got the story that they wanted. You know, a lot of times as a social media director, my job, you know, for example, say we're covering a red carpet and, you know, we use social images for everything you see on Facebook, Twitter, and whatnot So if we do, you know, a triptych, which is an image of like 3 people, and, you know, we're doing a carpet roundup, and I see Emma, Jessica Chastain, and like, you know, Jennifer Lawrence, I have to be the one to say, hey, where's Viola? Where's Carrie? Where's Priyanka? You know, get one of them in the slideshow and have at least one person of color in there. That's kind of the stuff I do on a high level and a low level that makes sure that we actually are representing our audience. So yeah, even if it's something as simple as that, you know, certain things may feel like they make no difference at all, but they really, really do. Visibility in every single form matters. You have no idea, like the number of tweets that I get that are people just like, I'm subscribing to Teen Vogue because I want my daughter to see this, or I want my sister to see this, or I want my friend to see this because I see myself. When we do covers that have openly gay people on them, people of color, I'm so excited for our next 3 issues and who's on them because I think they're amazing people and people that don't normally get to be involved with Teen Vogue. And I think you guys will see the representation that we continue to strive for. It makes me really, really excited. And the idea of speaking directly to our audience and speaking to diverse audiences and speaking to them directly and making them feel a personal connection, like that is the entire point of journalism, you know? In conclusion, you know, inclusion is cool AF. I wrote that is so bad. Teen Vogue 1,000,000% makes mistakes just like any other outlet, and we strive to be better. But it's not only us, up to us to do that, it's up to you too. Like it's been said, I need some water. Like it's been said, you know, we hold it to you guys to help us tell those stories. Seriously, I take pitches all the time. I go find bloggers that I think are dope. I go find people on Twitter who I think have a funny voice, and I get them to write stories for us. That's also part of my job. Pitching, getting those stories to our deputy editor, to our fashion editor, and saying like, this person is dope, let's put them on, they have a story to tell. So I take pitches, like you can DM me, like if you have a story, let me know, I'm about it. So make sure you ask yourself like not just why you're here and what you're writing, but what are the stories only you can tell? Think about it. Thank you.
Good job.
What do you think? So you can put that on your resume now. Accomplished
Again.
public speaker.